Jiffy. Look at all I've been able to do in just the space of 4 or 5 hours. So, what is the lesson? It is easier to destroy than it is to build. Welcome to my hair stories, my hair chronicles. My name is Dorcas Glader. So many times in many aspects of our lives, it is very easy to see the failures, than to see the success. It is very easy to see the mistakes that we've made as opposed to the progress that we are making. For those of you like myself who are losing weight, many a times it's hard. We always count the number of times we ate that cake, that we didn't exercise, the time the scale didn't shift on this, the weight, the numbers didn't shift on the weight, on the scale, you know as opposed to focusing on the positive side, the building aspect. You never know how deep the root of a tree is because it is in the ground. But actually, that is the success of that tree or that plant blooming into a tree or a shrub or whatever. It is because the roots are getting stronger to keep it upright, right? And having said that, that got me thinking also about how systematically, continuously, there has been a shift in the doctrines around hair when we were growing up, from the time I was growing up to where we are now. When we were growing up, there were some funny doctrines that we had in regards to fake hair, in regards to makeup, and which was that most of these things, all the artificial things we used, extensions, makeup, powder, perfume, came from the kingdom, from the marine kingdom. Now, do we have marine kingdom? I want to believe that there's marine kingdom because somewhere in the book of Revelation, John says everything hurt him. The creatures on the earth, underneath the earth, in the sea. So there are creatures or spirits, and everything hurt him. But are those creatures human beings? I do not know. I cannot tell you they are or they are not. So I believe. Hello, Romina, welcome. So I want to believe that a lot of those preachers, those televangelists, hi, John, welcome. A lot of those televangelists were promoting African tales because in Africa, how are you, John? In Africa, we believe in that the god of the sea or the spirit that, thank you so much, thank you for subscribing, that's kind of you, that the god or the spirit that rules the sea or and the rivers is a woman, is a female, so they call her the sea goddess. If you have heard of Mami Water, and she's always depicted as a light-skinned lady with very, very long hair. And to me, as an adult now, it makes me think, are we not, is that not what has made a lot of Africans believe in bleaching? Because a sea goddess, a princess, a queen is synonymous with beauty. Read any folklore, any story, you'll never see a queen. You rarely hear of a queen who is ugly, right? Except, of course, uh, Snow White's mom, who finally was told the truth. And she was not even said, the mirror never said she was ugly. The mirror said she was beautiful, just that Snow White was prettier than her. And she felt ugly because of that. So that was the standard of beauty. And I think that is why to me, I think that is why we want to be light skinned. To me, I think that is why that idea of a figure eight has been persistent and is coming back full force on the African continent. That's just my 2 cents. Unfortunately, fortunately, I think when those evangelists were preaching against those things, One of the things it helped me personally, and it helped a lot of us, was to stick to our natural beauty. So translation, our natural hair, our natural face. What I didn't subscribe to from my younger days was the idea that perfume was also of the devil, because when you go to the Old Testament, God uh, gives actually a recipe that he wants an insect to be made with, to be burnt in his temple. He's very, very particular about it. Sandalwood and all these nice, nice, fine smelling herbs that he wanted to be burnt. So much so is he jealous about it that he even patents it and tell the children of Israel, this is only for my temple. Nobody is to use it. And so you find out that from biblical time, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing that shows that God is not pleased with us using perfumes. Okay. So yeah, that is that. Now, coming as we grew older, the shift unfortunately came with televangelism, and Africans and the rest of the world has been conforming to Western form of or modern Christianity or more Western Christianity, where a lot of doctrines have been twisted or completely eradicated from uh, church principles. So, for example, the pastors, why we didn't, Christians never, Christian ladies didn't wear trousers back in the day, but as soon as the first ladies of countries that will not be mentioned started wearing trousers, and they started with suits, or they started with the jeans outside and the tracksuits outside for sports. Everybody followed suit. The next thing, these same women who were pushing for women's right started preaching on the pulpit. Now every pastor's wife is a preacher or is a pastor herself or is a mommy G.O. herself, irregardless of what, oh, sorry, regardless of what the Bible says. Okay. So that shows you the power of persistence, and it shows you how quickly you can break down uh, a certain doctrine or a certain standard, and how hard it is for this. Because for a time we tried to resist it, but with the era of televangelism, all those things, finally crumbled. And I think that doctrine of marine spirit being the source of artificial hair came back also when we started having human hair wigs, which, if you look at it, is not really necessarily, wigs are not altogether a new thing. It's just that it just made trend again in the 90s, in the 21st century. They've been there for ages, for ages. So, having said that, I wanted to share with you one or two stories that I learned from women either in the marketplace or at the salon. So, back home in Africa, Nigeria, we used to go to the market to braid our hair. Hello, talk fights. This what? We used to braid our hair, and the hair salons only offered chemical treatment for your hair. So it was jerry curls and relaxers. Those were the only services you did in a hair salon. We didn't even have beauty salons at the time as we do today, where you have makeup and all those things. No, you just went there, relaxed your hair. I think they had powder and eye pencil for you to apply if you wanted to, take away the sweat after they did your hair. Yeah, but basically, what happened in the city where I grew up was in the central market, which is the biggest market of the city. There was a lane specifically dedicated to hairdressers, so female braiders who braided hair. And many of those women worked as friends, or some trained their daughters, and then you would go there to braid your hair. And then my mom used to take us there, I think twice a month. So the hairstyle would last us 2 weeks, and then in between she would do something big and puffy for us to go to school with, or she would lose it and stand it for church. So the first story, imagine that, that this thing, and Was the story of this young girl. So first of all, uh, she wanted to. There was a trending style at the time that was called million braids. Now million braids is about 3 times smaller than what I have right now. So they were very, very teeny, tiny braids. So like this one now, we would have it like two or three, from that one braid. And normally there would be, uh, you know, so you would have that, and then in the market there will be like two or three women that will help you to braid that hair, you know. So the story says that this lady came to the market to braid her hair, and the way they would price your hair was how long your hair was, how thick it was, and then the size you wanted it. So the bigger the size, the less you paid, because it would take less time, and vice versa. So if your hair was longer, even though they made it big, it would still take a lot of time. So it was the length of your hair multiplied by the size of the braids or cornrows or African thread that you wanted. So let's call her Linda. So Linda comes to the market and says, I want to braid my hair. And she, she, the lady gives her a price, which was a bit steep for Linda, because normally the asking price for that hairstyle was, I'll give you a random number. So let's say the hairstyle was $15, and the lady charges Linda $20. Now in Africa, when you give a price, we normally tend to bargain. Bargain, for those of you who speak Spanish, they say regatear. So you would bargain, and then you settle on a price. But this lady didn't want to bargain whatsoever, and she was not even pleasant about it. So I think that was where the problem started. Now, that market used to close at 6 o'clock. It had gates very far away from each other, actually. So um, she couldn't finish the hair. So she's braiding and she's braiding. 4 o'clock comes, she's not even halfway. 5 o'clock comes, then she begins to, try to mellow down and tell Linda that, listen, I can't do I can't finish this hair right now. So you have to come tomorrow and then we'll finish it. So if they had reached an agreement, Linda was supposed to have given her, part payment, but she had not paid. So when she tells the girl that, Linda is like, mm-mm. Just the same way you refuse to give me a discount, I refuse to go home with my unfinished hair. We're gonna finish this hair come midnight, come rain, come sunshine. I don't care what the time is. And the lady says, are we going to sleep here? She say, yeah, if it means we're going to sleep here, you're going to buy candlelight. I don't care what you're going to do, but you will finish my hair before you go home. And so the story goes that she did, the people left them, went home, everybody went home, and we never saw the lady again. Legend says when they came back the next day, that lady never came back to the market. So we don't know what happened, but being an African country, they want to believe that uh, the lady was a ghost who came to teach that lady a lesson. And so the moral of the lesson is not to be greedy, to be kind, because you don't know who you're dealing with, So that's the moral of Linda's story. So we don't know what happened to her. The next is the story of my friend, my superstitious friend, who went to have her hair done. Now, when you have African threading done, at the end, they tie the thread. After wrapping the thread around your hair, they would normally cut it off, cut the thread off, like trim it off, so that the end becomes neat. And because in Africa they do what they call voodoo or African juju, we say juju in Nigeria. and they use hair. I think in Francophone countries, they use even nails as points of contact. So my friend says as soon as she saw this lady left quite a good length, about an inch of her hair, the tips of her hair, and cut it. So it falls to the ground, and my friend goes into panic mode, into anxiety attack. Like, why did you cut off my hair? Why did you cut off the tip of my hair? Tell me what you want to do with my hair. You're a witch. You want to use my hair for voodoo. You want to use my hair for voodoo. And people are like, what is the problem? No, she didn't finish my hair. She cut off my hair. She wants to use my hair. And my friend threw made a, how do you say in English? The English people say she made a storm out of a teacup, and she raised hell, which was so funny because again, she comes from a church where um they've taught them those things that people can use your hair to, you know, to harm you through juju or voodoo, through witchcraft, which I do not, you know, completely agree, because I believe if you're a bona fide Christian, you are protected from all harm by the blood of Jesus. So, but yeah, that's the second story. And that was in my childhood. As we grew older, salons became more popular and they began to offer braiding services. So now we could go to the salon to braid our hair. And by the time I was in nursing college, we were using weave-ons, those ones, the sew-ins that you call the sew-ins. Yeah, so we're using sew-ins. That was what was popular, not the wigs. The sew-ins were in vogue at the time. So it was more common and more convenient to go to the hair salon, So, but I didn't like the hair salon because it was a gossip center. I don't know if it's the same thing in this night. I think if I will judge by some of the Hollywood movies I've seen, it's common also in black communities, but most times a salon is not a decent place for ladies. And if you're one of those that make it uncomfortable, please stop. Please really stop. When I came to Ecuador, I stopped going to the salons, but yeah, at that stage in my life, I'm talking about my late teens, it was common to go to the salons. I had relaxed my hair, so I used to go to the salon. And you would hear all sorts of sordid stories in the salon. You would hear about the things that they did with their male partners at night in very, very vulgar language. You don't know who is a lady until you go to the salon. Many of these women you see clean dressed, all in church or at the office, until they go to a salon, you don't know who is a lady. They can be vulgar. Unfortunately, I come from a culture where we are not really encouraged to rebuke our elders, so you couldn't say, Mom, stop talking about those kind of things here. They are small kids here. They just assumed everybody did it. And I mean, your private life is private. Come on now, so uh, they they will just speak like that. So two stories that I learned from the salon. The first story was the wife who um, exposed her marriage to her friends and almost ruined it by doing so. So in those salons, what used to happen was they used to sell fabrics, right? And in Nigeria, we sell fabrics in yards, so they'll sell them in 5 or 6 yards, and some of them were expensive. So she went to, and we normally go to the salons with our friends many times, just to have company. So she told her friend she couldn't buy one of those fabrics, they call them lace. And so they asked her why. And then she said, no, she has groceries to shop for, which in Nigeria, that is the job of a man to buy the food for the house, even though the wife goes to the market, but a man is supposed to provide the food, the school fees, the rent, women's money. Many women, they keep their money for themselves because traditionally also men have always used money to control their wives. So when a woman works, you know, since he wants to be the head and dictate the direction of the family, they think he should earn their respect with money. So that is kind of debatable anyway. So, but that was what happened. So it was weird when this lady says to her friend that she does that for her family, and they wanted to know if that gave her some controlling power in the family, as you know because a lot of these women don't understand that they were influencing the young ladies who were dressing their hair, the young ladies who were putting on their dresses. They were painting a very, very terrible picture about marriage. So she said, fine. It's like, no, you have to demand your right. That's the more reason. If you're spending the money in the house, you get to say what you say. You should control him. He doesn't deserve your respect. You get to do what you want to do because you are the one spending the money. And she went home and thought, yeah, she could say whatever it is she wanted to say. And I don't really know exactly. The story never told us what exactly she wanted. But the husband immediately sensed the change in her, that she had been influenced from from outside. There was an external influence. And he told her to be careful about it because he wasn't going to put up with it. But she didn't know what he meant, if he was going to discipline her or punish her or leave the marriage. She just didn't know what he meant by not putting up with it. So she goes to her friend who told her to begin to control the husband, to ask for further advice what to do, because now the man has put his foot down. And so she she says she's gonna go. So when she gets to the house, she gets into the compound or the yard. We say compound in Nigeria, and she hears people. The man is giving her punches. This lady is being battered in her own house by her husband. And so she sneaks up, behind the cars, and she gets to the window only to find out that actually it was her friend crying, and it was the husband doing the beating. And he was telling her, don't think because you pay the bills around here, you get to tell me what to do. I'm still your husband. Even though you pay the bills here, I'm still your husband. You will learn how to talk to me. You will learn how to respect me. And blah, 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 blah. And he was, bah, 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 was slapping her, flogging her. And this lady is supposed to be a tigress, they like to call themselves. And she's not doing anything. She's just on the floor, cowering there, crying, don't hit me, don't hit me. And Mrs. Realizes, oh, this lady has been wanting me to destroy. So this lady has been lying to us at the salon. She's trying to destroy our marriages. And only God knows if other friends have not been trying to control their husband. Because that's the impression she has been trying to give. Not only that, she was actually a victim of the DV, you know. So she goes back home, apologizes to the husband, and they live their lives, continuously, continuing the way they were before. And then one day, the husband comes back with a gift, a car, to thank her for her patience, for having his back at the home front, settling the bills. Because actually, what he was doing with his money was that he was building their house, but he didn't want to let her know. So he was building their house, and he couldn't this thing. He wanted to surprise her because women sometimes they are not very easy. So I think she just figured since he wasn't spending, she should take care of her kids, and so she was buying the groceries and things. And he just let her do that, not knowing that maybe she needed an explanation. So that was one lesson, that I learned at the hair salon. And how did we get to know that? You may be asking if you're curious. Well, the lady brought her car, according to the hairdresser who told us the story. The lady came with her car by herself to the salon because she knows her friends go there on a Saturday. And she surprised them. She said, "Yeah, this is my gift for being the breadwinner for all that period of time I told you I was taking care of the family front, because my husband was doing something else with his money. He had invested, and now we have our own house, and now I have my own car. So the moral of the story to me is this: again, it is easy to lose your hair than it is to braid it. It is very easy to destroy your marriage. It is very easy to destroy a relationship. The Bible says the tongue is the smallest part of the body, but it can set the whole body ablaze. It can set a ship ablaze. See how small the rudder of the ship is, but it steers an entire ship. So those are the few African stories I remember from my childhood. Right now, I think many people don't go to the salons, or few people. There are some people who don't go to the salons because of that gossipy environment, because of the vulgar language. They do home services. For me personally, since I came to Ecuador, I never went to I never went to a salon. I've never been to a salon here in Ecuador, because for about 7 or 6 years, I had the same hairdresser, and I didn't know how emotionally attached I was to my hairdresser until I came to Ecuador, and I needed to relax my hair. And that's when I realized I literally had anxiety attacks thinking about taking my hair to someone to relax it, because your your hairdresser, your doctor, your tailor, they know you very well. Your lawyer, I don't play with those people. Those are people that know a very, very important part of your life. So I don't play with them. So that was how I became a natural hair girly, because I watched 100 videos and I couldn't relax my hair. I tried to relax it, the hair didn't, the relaxer didn't take in, and I said, you know what, basta, like we say in Spanish, basta, not bastard, okay, basta. So I started chopping my hair little by little, and learning videos, DIY care, how to clean my hair, how to wash it, hair routines, how to care for fussy hair, because my fussy hair has always been a problem when I was a child as a natural hair girl. Back then, I used to pay a lot of money to have my natural hair taken care of. That was actually why I was relaxed for the most part of my 20s. Yeah, I think I was relaxed girl for about 10 years of my life. But when I came to Ecuador and I couldn't go to the salon, or didn't want to go to the salon, I learned how to braid myself. I learned how to do DIY products, like I make my own oil, shampoo, all those things. I chop my hair, and 9 years later, we are here. We're almost bra length now. So don't focus on the mistakes, focus on the construction, focus on what you're building. You'll make mistakes, you will try. Don't be afraid to try, don't be afraid to fail. What failure has taught me is that you made an attempt. You made an attempt, and so you've discovered that that way doesn't work. So that it just shows you that there is a better way to do something. That is what failure has taught me. And That is what my braiding has also taught me, that um, if you don't get it right today, you'll get it right tomorrow. If you don't finish today, you'll finish tomorrow. So always focus on the positive, because you have to be your biggest fan. You have to be your biggest fan. I've learned to do my own hair myself. I've learned to take care of my hair, and the same patience. And what going natural really taught me was self love, patience, and so I'm really happy with where I am, even though for some medical reasons my hair is not as thick as it used to be when I was younger, but it's healthy, it's not breaking. So I'm gonna stop the video here because it's late. I want to rest, and I think maybe I'll be live when I finish. I just want to. Tomorrow I'll be losing the roots of the braids. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but I did this braids before adding every extension. So I'm just gonna finish taking out the extensions off camera. And the next time you see me on my hair chronicles, I'll be having a new hairstyle, or I'll be without braids at best. I hope you enjoyed this episode, this live episode. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for subscribing, John. God bless you all and have a wonderful day ahead, wherever you are. If you are in Ecuador, good night. Hasta mañana.